Let's go.
Found the siren. Incident 13. Lucky 13. Let's go.
Premiumbeat.com.
Well,
What's up?
a midday pod. I love it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
perfect. It's
Yeah, they
perfect.
would never know because we record all these.
Well, here's the thing. Like, behind me is my
You're behind
window, and
you.
you can see the light coming in from. So it's definitely not evening time in the Raleigh region, but midday pod. I'll take it. So
Let's be very transparent. We are working schlubs, and if we can get a midday one in, especially with the guests that we're gonna have,
yeah,
you know what? We'll deal with it and we'll make do
yeah. You say yes to that every single time. Like we
every time.
yeah, we're having a blast. And we get a chance to talk with Jimmy Murphy today, who's the co-host with Pierre McGuire, who we've had on a couple times, the Eye Test through the Sick Podcast Network, and they do a great job. I'm looking forward to having a conversation. Listen, guys, it's going to be a little bit of a Boston slant to start. He comes from the Boston region. He's a big Bruins guy, so we're going to talk about that. But we're definitely going to get into some Canes talk. Just talking hockey with the guy. Come on, he's been around the the, the league for what 20 plus years. He's been
Long
writing
time.
about it. I mean, he's like living my dream essentially, which is writing and talking hockey. And to me, that's exactly what I want to be doing. So, so it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, you kind of come from that side. If anybody's listened to our broadcast, that they know that you would have loved to have been like a hockey writer, hockey analyst. I never really desired that side of it. I always liked, the building of the relationships, and I would have probably just preferred to have been a player, but
Yeah.
hence the genetics never helped with that one. Um, but yeah, so listen, we're coming off of a good win against a very, very young and talented San Jose Shark team last night. That young team is going to get set for the future. They're making some moves and they're doing some things. They're not quite there yet, but they're building something in San Jose. I think that could really it could be a monster in a couple years. I don't know what you think.
They looked really fast, especially in the third period. I thought that they were still flying around the ice after two periods. The long trips out east for them are just like the long West Coast trips for us. I mean, at you're traveling and then you have to play a game that's like really biologically like 4 o'clock their time.
Yeah.
It's just a different beast, and so for them to have the legs that they had in the third period was pretty impressive. And I got to tell you, like we had to get up for them that third period to get that win.
Oh
That was
yeah.
no gimme. That was no
Nope.
gimme. I thought Vanacek played well in net. I thought that overall, getting the win was nice, but if it takes you 57 minutes to get away from the draw and get the extra point against San Jose, that does lead me to the question of do we have a little bit of trouble in Raleigh at this point? I don't think we do, but time will tell. We've got three more games in this homestand, and I do think that we've got some things going in our favor. For example, last night, all three goals coming from our blue line, which was great.
Yep.
And you know, that Aho pass to Burns, that was just disgusting, man. I mean,
Right.
Nobody's going to stop that. I mean, Burns, jumping like he does, like for as much as I've talked about, like, is Burns somebody who we can count on right now? I mean, obviously he's a legend, of a veteran in the game. He knows the game. He's smart. He works hard. But has he lost a step? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Like, but for him to jump the way that he did and get to a point where he was available for that pass, it that that that's the Brent Burns I need to see. I need to see that
Yeah.
guy offensively.
Yeah, I think taking him off the ice a little bit with the power play and whatnot is hopefully going to help long term. But I think to your point, I mean, I think he has lost a step. We can talk about that later. I would certainly like to talk about those two goals, and we don't need to necessarily do that now. But the Kochetkov goals, I really kind of felt like those were. Ugh.
Yeah,
He needs to save one of those. But
let me
I'm not gonna complain too hard about that. But I'm gonna also say, Chris, too, to your point about, it takes us 57 minutes. This just speaks to also to the parity of the league. The league, you can't sleep for one night in this league. You just can't. And if you
Pierre
do,
brought it up last time. Yeah, exactly.
then you'll get taken. And it's
Hmm.
been proven, more often than not that if you think that you can just slide your way through a game, it ain't gonna work.
Well, you got the San Jose's, the Anaheims, the Ottawas. You got to you still have to find the energy to get up for those games. I'll go back to what we were talking about with Pierre about being in the bubble. Those teams had to get up for those games. There were no fans in the stadium. They had to create their own energy. Um, and I think that needs to be said for some of these teams that we quote unquote should be taken care of. The Montreals, the Ottawas, the Chicagos, the San Jose's, the Anaheims, those teams that we should be just coming in, imposing our will, walking out of there with a win, 2 points, no problem.
Yep.
It does. I do like the whole coming back from down 2-1 and having some adversity. It builds a little bit of character. I get that.
Yep.
Build some character with that Rangers win. Build the character with the Dallas win. Those are the ones where you should probably be down a little bit and have to fight and claw, because that's a team that you want to fight and claw against and come back on top.
Yep.
The San Jose, I mean, we're going to see them one more time in March at their building, and I just hope we're up and ready for them because
Yeah.
they're fast. That's a fast team. They're up and coming, as you said.
Oh
They
yeah.
may end up shipping off some people at the deadline, but honestly,
I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. I don't know how much I see unless they're just kind of shipping off vets. But some of their young kids, they ain't. They're gonna keep them.
no, the kids they'll keep. I'm talking about, like, you got like a couple goalies that are on their final year of their deal, and there's a couple teams that could be in the goalie market.
Yep. Yep.
Carolina for one, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah. Uh-oh, you froze, Chris. We're still recording. I'll just kind of piggyback off of what maybe unless I'm frozen. Um, Chris, you good? Well, anyway, uh, we'll keep going here. Um, we're waiting on Jimmy, I think, to come on. Um, we had a little bit of a technical snafu with Jimmy, and we'll see if we can kind of figure out some of this. But yeah, just kind of talking about what's going on with um, the current state of the Canes. I think that they're just needing to find their game. Um, it's interesting because when we've been talking about as far as piggybacking off of some of these wins. Um, yep, Chris is going to come back online. Um, the Hurricanes are gonna need to find energy. That's where their bread and butter is. Hard forechecking up and down the ice. They need that because that's just their style of play. And if they get away from that, and Rod Brindamore is pretty, um, pretty vocal about that. When they get away from their game, they tend to kind of, slip into some bad habits. A lot of turnovers in the neutral zone, center ice. I do want to point out that Roslovic made a really nice play up the wall to William Carrier, and a beautiful goal by Shane Gostisbehere. I believe that was the first goal. And so, these are the things that going to need to kind of work through. So yeah, again, apologize for the little technical snafus here. We're kind of working through them with some potentially some some bad internet connection. So we're working on that right now. These are one of the things that you just deal with sometimes as a podcast. So all right. So we're waiting on Jimmy Murphy. Just to kind of give you a real quick background on Jimmy. Jimmy is a longtime writer, longtime editor out of the I think out of the New Hampshire area, but primarily the Boston region. He's been a writer for Boston Hockey Now for a long, long, long time. And so we're really excited to to get him on here, hopefully very, very soon. He also does the eye test with Pierre McGuire on a daily basis, pretty much. I highly encourage you to check that out. We will have a link in our description for that daily. I highly encourage you to go check it out. It's just good nuggets of things that you can chew on a daily basis. Then they have a little Q&A at the end where they kind of take anything, any kind of questions that you have in regards to hockey, and they really kind of run down um NHL level, AHL level. They're big college hockey guys as well. um so that's that's kind of their bread and butter as well, is really that daily broadcast. And yeah, it's really, really pretty cool. So I highly encourage you to check that out. I just got a message from Jimmy Murphy. He will be here in just a moment, and hoping we can get on Chris as well. So I won't apologize anymore, because I've done that. I've done enough apologies. But yeah, so anyway, I highly encourage you to check that out. Again, we'll do a real quick recap with the Pierre incident that we had last time. If you're keeping up with what we're doing here, having Pierre McGuire on with us is beyond special. It's become, like you probably get tired of hearing us talk about these pinch me moments for Chris and I on these broadcasts, but to have somebody like Pierre, who is in our view a legend in the game, has been beyond awesome. There he is. There he is.
So my lights flickered.
It's all
I
good.
was like, I'm in the middle of talking about goalies, and I think the Lord might be trying to strike me down because he's a Kochetkov guy too, apparently. I don't know.
Well, so anyway, I was holding people over. Jimmy just told me he'll be right there. He'll be right here. So
Oh,
having
fantastic.
some little technical snafus that we're having. That's cool. These are the things that just kind of come with the territory. Chris, I was just going to do a real quick recap on what our last incident with Pierre McGuire, and
Oh
how very
yeah.
fortunate that we have been to be able to have people that have that kind of status. You've heard us talk about it before. We talked about a whole host of things with Pierre, and I won't bore you with kind of going through the whole recap, but some of the things that are close to me are the cost of hockey, especially at the youth level, which we talked about a lot, which is very near and dear to me for other reasons. I'll talk about it at another point in time, but I wanted to hand it off to you, Chris, because there was one specific part of that incident that just made us both just smile.
Well, at the end of that incident where we were talking, we had a chance to talk about Kenny Albert. I absolutely enjoyed that so thoroughly. The genuine, authentic dialogue that he had as it related to Kenny Albert was next level for me, man. Like just next level. And for him, when I could listen to it forever, him talking about him and Kenny in the bubble. He seemed to really enjoy that piece of it as well. And I
Yep.
just I can't get enough of it. Just listening over that piece of it. So it was a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
absolutely. Super, super cool. Super
Yeah.
fun. Well, listen, maybe we've figured out a little bit of some of our technical snafus at this point, and we get to
Oh,
have on a guy that I've been listening to for quite a while now, but Jimmy Murphy, and I'm gonna bring him on in. Jimmy.
How you doing, guys?
Oh
hey
man, we're
Jimmy, how
so
are you?
Good, you?
great,
I'm
man. We're so
stoked
excited
to
to
have
have
you,
you on,
man.
man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Good to
Of
be here.
course. Yeah. So listen, we'll jump right in. Jimmy's the co-host of the Sit podcast with the Eye Test with legendary Pierre McGuire. And we've gotten to know Pierre a little bit here, and we're constant pinch me moments, Jimmy, with having to be able to have a conversation with Pierre. I wanted to ask you, how did you guys start the Sick podcast together? It seems like you and Pierre have known each other for years. At least that's what it appears.
Well, we do have a relationship dating back, geez, probably now to like 2008,
Okay.
somewhere around there. So I used to go up sometimes, and I did a lot. I still do. Pierre on TSN 690 in Montreal, which Pierre does. Used to do a daily segment. Now he does Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I think at like 5:30 on the Mitch Melnick show. And so one time I was filling in for the week for Mitch during the summer. And part of my job was to interview Pierre every day, which, I was like you guys at the time, grew up admiring him and, really wanting to emulate him. And then just got to know him from that and so on. And then we just kept in touch. And I don't know, I think it was probably like early November. Actually, it was on my birthday, I think, last year, 2023. Yeah, November 4th. We just shooting the shit, talking, watching some football one Sunday. And I said, let's do a podcast. Let's get it going. He said, yeah, let's do it. Why not?
That's
So there we
awesome.
are. That's
That's
how it happened.
great. That's how me and Darren actually started off too. It was like just we were talking randomly. We used to work together at a company, and we talked about hockey for I don't know many months, even years. And finally, it was just like this is silly. Let's just do a podcast together. Let's get fired up about the Hurricanes. And so we're doing it now. It took us probably 2 years to get off our keister, but here we are. We're doing it. And so you know, being able to talk to guys like you, guys like Pierre, guys like Mike Maniscalco. I mean, it's so much fun for us to have those dialogues, have those conversations, and meet these people, and meet you. I guess for me personally, I grew up wanting to be in kind of that sports media realm. Like I wanted to write about it or talk about it or whatever. Like, so my question for you is like, how do I become you? Like, how do I, how did you get to where you are, man? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be broke and hanging on by a thread for the next 20 years, go for it. But, yeah, I mean, it's not as glorious as it sounds, but the one thing is obviously you're doing what you love, and that's what keeps you
Yeah.
going. And you enjoy it, and it's my passion. So, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. Like stick with it. Don't do it, then drop it, then do it, then stick with it. And I think now, in this day and age with the podcast becoming so huge, you have much more of a window to do it if you know how to network and you can stick to it and really do a lot of good self-promotion on social media and stuff. You can make some headway. So I'm not saying it's easier by any means, but there are more avenues, I think, for you to get into this industry. And you just gotta, it's all, it's all about your passion. So just keep following it.
I'm super passionate. Hockey in particular is like it's my number one. Like I watch football, I watch college basketball, I watch baseball. My son plays baseball. My daughter does competitive dance, but hockey is at the top for me. I love watching the sport. I'll watch anybody play at this point. Like I just love watching it. So
I'm the
You
same.
just don't know anybody, unfortunately.
hey
Well,
man, why you gotta bring that up?
Did you guys
cool.
now? Do you guys go? Do you go to any of the games?
Yeah.
Or,
Oh yeah.
We try to. Yeah,
Yeah.
we try to go. We try to obviously stay super informed, obviously with what's going on, as much as we can internally, if we can. But so Jimmy, I don't think I need to, you're a non-apologist for the Boston Bruins. it's been a couple weeks, well, several weeks now since Jimmy Montgomery was let go. I know
Mhm.
it's water under. I know it's water under the bridge, and I should also say, I don't think that we'll probably cover anything that you haven't even covered. But I think maybe for our audience, things that maybe they don't hear, just because they're in their Hurricanes bubble. But do you think that was still, hindsight being 2020, was that the right move for the
No,
Bruins to?
no, no. I mean, if you saw last night, I don't know if you guys watched any of the game,
A
but I
little bit.
mean, just look at the
Yep.
score and say that was not a good game for the Boston Bruins. They lose 8-1. I mean, look, the Bruins now, first of all, you guys watch the eye test, and Pierre and I have been saying from the get-go since July 1st, since they made those signings of Lindholm and Zadorov, we said that they're solid signings, but they were signing them to be something they really aren't. Lindholm is not a 1C. He's a 2C or a 3C on a contender. And Zadorov is by no means a top 4 defenseman. And, we've seen his Achilles heel is he makes bad decisions coming out of the zone. And he also, he's reckless. And I love his passion and his physicality, but he's got to learn how to utilize it better and contain it, and use it more specifically. And last night was a perfect example. I mean, he was coughing the puck up left and right, committing to hits instead of the puck or the player or the play. And it's been a nightmare with him. And then Lindholm has had some ups and downs. I don't think he's been bad, but he's never going to be David Krejci or Patrice Bergeron. He's never going to fill that 1C slot. So, this roster was flawed from the get-go. And then when I saw, they didn't sign Montgomery to an extension in the summer, they then go out and they bring in Jay Leach as another assistant. So now I'm like, Pierre, why do they have an extra assistant? There I have 2. And that to me signaled that the plan was if our roster plan doesn't work, Montgomery's the scapegoat by Thanksgiving. And sure enough, he was. I think the writing was on the wall. I think he knew it. And then you factor in the whole Swayman issue, which really now is, I mean, I'll get into that in a second, but it's an issue. It's still a very big issue. That hurt the camp. That put everything out of flux. Everything was just sort of, chaotic, and it was a distraction. And that hung over them as the season started. And now you look at it, and I said this to Pierre this morning, and I tweeted it as well last night. Why is it that not just Jim Montgomery, but now Joe Sacco have left Jeremy Swayman in during a blowout and let him get roasted out there? Why is that, right? And so I tweeted that right at the end of the game last night, and then I'm watching a post game, and Kevin Paul DuPont is in the scrum with Brad Marchand, and he says, "Hey, do you feel for Jeremy that he got left in there?" And he says, "No, he's a part of the loss too." That's telling to me that dressing room is not happy with Jeremy Swayman. The coaching staff, the management, they're all not happy, and they're saying, "You wanted to be the man. You wanted to set the market. Well, now you're going to get yourself out of this. We're not bailing you out." And this is something to watch, guys, as we go on. I think this is a developing situation with the Bruins. And I think that they looked at the wrong person when they tried to identify the problem when they let go of Montgomery. And furthermore, look at the games they won after Montgomery was fired. Look at the teams they beat versus the teams that Jim Montgomery's been beating with the Blues. Montgomery's beating all over 500 teams.
Valid.
Right? He's going through the grinder. They were beating crummy teams. Now, I'm not going to say that about Philly because Philly's a tough out, but other than that, they really didn't beat anyone tough since Sacco got in there. And then they finally face a solid team and they get their asses kicked. So there's a lot of issues going on with the Boston Bruins right now.
Yeah. I was gonna ask about Swayman because I think that the ongoing it's like a dark cloud over the whole organization all summer, really, until that deal got done. And even then, you don't have the camp time to really develop the chemistry that you need to. And then when you've got your captain, what you're just sharing with us now, kind of saying, "Hey, we're going to leave you out the roast because you want it, you got it." That to me is very telling. And it sounds like that locker room has got maybe some deeper issues than perhaps maybe even the regular fan would know about. Is that I've seen it in sports before where guys will hold out for contracts, guys will hold out for money, and I get it. You want to get your bag. I totally understand. But on the flip side of it, it does become detrimental to your team. And I think the
Mhm.
Swayman thing, to your point, I think that's exactly what's happened. Is Swayman just he's kind of screwed over the team, and the coaching staff and the team are like, well, get yourself out of this hole. And is it going to happen? What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know how they do this, but I will say, well, I get their frustration and I understand where they're coming from with their thoughts on him holding out. I also want to say too, though, like, do you want to win games though? I mean, clearly he doesn't have it right now. He's not the Jeremy Swayman that they knew last year, in the guy that took them to Game 6 against the eventual Stanley Cup champions in the playoffs in the second round. But at what point do you say, okay, let's get rid of the grudge here and play to win? I mean, Korpisalo should have been in there. It was clear from the get-go that Swayman didn't have it. Korpisalo has outplayed Swayman to this point.
He has, yeah.
And I can't stand when teams are playing players based on their salary. It shouldn't go that way. Or when they have them up in the lineup based on what they're making. It should always be on what they're doing on the ice at that current moment, and that's it. And right now, Joonas Korpisalo has been the better goalie than Jeremy Swayman.
Agreed.
It's a good point. It's really weird too, because if you just look at Boston's, if I'm just like eye test, just looking at their defense, they're not old, but they do have some long contracts that are, and Zadorov is, he's signed for a long time, and beyond Zadorov though, Jimmy, do you see any other specific deficiencies defensively for them?
I just don't think right now we got to factor in guys too that Hampus Lindholm is out of the lineup. And by all accounts,
he's big. I mean, he's huge.
He's going to be out for a while. I mean, the fact that Sweden didn't put him on the roster, even mention him as a tentative replacement or extra guy, in case he gets healthy, I would think that the Bruins must have tipped him off and said, look, I mean, he's not going to be healthy enough. And it's so bad that even if he is healed by then, we're not going to let him take the risk. So it's a lot more serious, I think, than they originally thought. I think he's going to be out for a while.
I didn't know that.
And it's pretty clear how they miss him. And so I think with him out of the lineup right now, I mean, you've got Jordan Osterley, a career AHLer, is your top pairing lefty right now with Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that tell you? Like, they miscalculated. I think that right now, they just got to hope that this patchwork D works, and maybe they have to go out and make a move. I know a lot of people look at that lineup and say they could use a scoring winger in the top 6 to help out, and I don't disagree with that. But I think right now the big issue, based on the style that Sacco is going to play, which is a grinding, let's win 2-1, 3-1 games, I think they need to get a D-man. Based on how long Lindholm's going to be out right now, they need to maybe get somebody that can come into that second pairing, push Zadorov back down in the third, and get somebody on the left with Carlo.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. That's a real good point. I mean, we know all about the 2-1, 3-2 kind of grind games. I mean, that's the way Carolina plays. Is those heavy games where you're kind of in heart attack mode pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
I want to shift just a little bit, maybe lighten it a little bit, lighten the mood a little bit. Public enemy number 1, Brad Marchand. He seems to be a menace. He's a pest. He's everything you would ever want if he wore your sweater, but he's public enemy number 1 for me. Is the guy a jerk off the ice like he is on the ice? I'm just kidding. No, that's not the question. His approach with the C on the sweater, has that changed over the course of time? His approach to how he plays the game, do you think?
I don't know if I think it changed before. I think, if you go back to, what was it? Was it 2018 or 19? I can't remember when, he licked Ryan Callahan in the playoffs against Tampa. I think it was 18. Yeah, because they didn't play Tampa in 19. That's how they made it in the final. Yeah, because Columbus beat Tampa in the first round. So I think that, that moment, I know at that moment, they had a come to Jesus moment with him, whether it was Cam Neely, whether it was Don Sweeney, whether it was Bruce Cassidy at the time, who was the coach, and then obviously Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara. They shook him up pretty good and said, look, you have a chance. I mean, because he had already proven. I mean, you look at from like 2016 to 2018, he kind of came out at that World Cup in 2016 and said, I'm more than just a pain in the ass. I'm more than a pest. I'm a offensive weapon here, and I can
100%.
I can really help a team and put points up. And so that kind of was like his, walking the line moment where okay, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be remembered as? And I think at that moment he knew I got to change my stripes here, and I got to become more of a complete player, get rid of this garbage out of my game. And he did a good job. And I think that just kind of developed more and more, and he matured. And I don't know, like I kind of felt like maybe the C should have went to McAvoy just because they're supposedly trying to transform into a new generation and kind of pass the torch. And he's really the only holdout or leftover from the Cup team and that whole core. But I get it. He's kind of the in-between guy. I think he's done well as a captain. I think last year was a learning experience for sure. But I think this year he's led. And I mean, Jeremy Swayman may not like what he said last night, but he spoke the truth. And I think that's what a captain needs to do. Sometimes he's got to bring the hard truth out there and say it.
You got to kick him in the tail sometimes. I totally agree with that. One thing I'll note about Marchand, I agree with him in this sense. He was asked maybe when the Four Nations event rosters came out, he had made mention. He was asked about a player that he's looking forward to playing with that he maybe hasn't played with before. He mentioned Seth Jarvis, and I thought that was pretty interesting because Seth, he's in Carolina, right? And Carolina is not a huge market, but it's clear, I guess, he's getting noticed, which is really nice for me to hear. But for somebody like Brad Marchand, and look, he's a menace, not because he's of the antics he does on the ice. He kills us every time we play him. It seems like he's burying a puck. I don't like him on the ice at all because he can do all sorts of things offensively.
Yeah,
he's very, very good. And I'd love to see him in a Kane sweater, but I know that'll never happen. But for him to specifically call out Seth Jarvis, I thought that was pretty awesome, and I was encouraged by that, knowing that he's being looked at that way across his peers across the league.
I wondered that I was not aware of this, but the second you just started talking about it, my head went back to 2022. That 7-game series between the Bruins and the Canes that the Canes won. The home team won every game.
Yep.
It was a great series. And
great
Jarvis kind of, had a coming out party there a bit. He was everywhere in that. I remember, and I didn't know much about him at the time. And I remember calling Pierre about him during the series. And I remember talking to scouts about him as I started to watch him more and be like, wow, he's just a barrel of energy, man. And so maybe, I can see some similarities there. And maybe that's when Marchand realized, going against him for 7 games, this kid's the real deal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for
I
real.
love to hear it.
So I'm going to switch real quickly. New York Rangers. Now that Jacob Trouba, and this is another swirl. Trouba. There's so many directions I want to go, and I know you and Pierre, you guys have touched on quite a bit of subject matters with the Rangers overall. But with him gone, is there, and I know that you guys talked about it yesterday, is there an immediate need, Jimmy, that they've got to put a C on somebody now to solidify that locker room? I know you guys talked about the rotating thing. I know from experience here in Carolina, this rotating thing with Jordan Stahl and Justin Falk, that didn't go so well. But so I don't know how that works.
I'm not a fan of that, but the only reason I don't see a C going on anyone yet is because the smarty pants Chris Drury decided to say everyone in the team's available. So it's like, well, you're gonna put a C on a guy and then trade him 3 days later. So I think until he finds that, because I think there's another shoe dropping here. I think there will be another impact trade from that roster. I think until they do that, and then they know their roster going forward, I don't think you'll see a C go on anyone.
Yeah, that's interesting. And because I love Peter Laviolette. Of course, I don't like him, behind the Rangers bench. Yeah. But
he was great.
I'm always like, how this is probably naive of me. These great coaches, they'll get rid of him, and within 3 seconds, he's going to have another job.
Yeah, well, it's just like we were saying with Monty. I mean, it's the easy way out for a GM, right? It's unfortunately that's their scapegoat, so to speak. But I think Pierre said this a couple times. We've seen what now 18 coaches in the last calendar year have been fired.
Crazy.
Sooner or later, you got to think owners are going to start looking at the GMs, and they're going to be like, nope, that's not an option. So either you fix that roster or you're gone, and, we'll find another GM. So I wonder if that starts to trend that way soon. It is interesting. I thought Laviolette, honestly, not that it's his fault. I'm with you. I think he's a great coach. I did think, though, he'd be gone by now. So that's the only credit I give to Drury, that he did point there. I like it better when a GM focuses on himself and on the roster to fix things. He just didn't handle it the proper way. It just got too public. That's all. But, I'm glad that Laviolette's still there. Maybe he'll get fired in 10 minutes after I say that.
Breaking news. No,
Very true. Very true.
I was so happy for him when he won that cup with Carolina, because I don't know if you guys know, but he was the head coach of the Providence Bruins. He took them he won a Calder Cup with them in 1999. So a funny story. So anyhow, 1999, I was still at UMass Amherst, and I bartended. Amherst is out in the western half of Massachusetts. And there's a city, it's a small city. I don't know, I'm trying to think of somewhere in Carolina I could equivocate it to, but it's an old mill city, kind of run down, but it's got a lot of Irish in it. And they have some great Irish pubs, and I was bartending there all the time. So anyhow, I knew a lot of people in Holyoke, and one of my buddies from there worked for the P Bruins at the time, and he was director of sales, and he got to know Lavi a lot. They would go out for pops all the time after games, and they really formed a good friendship. And so when they won the Calder Cup and Lavi got his day with the cup, I was, his guest to come down to Lavi's house in Rhode Island. Wow. Yeah, we went down to Rhode Island, and he was blocked from the beach. And so anyhow, we went down and had people down on the beach. Then we get back to his house. We got a little bonfire going. We're hanging out, having a good time. And so he says to my buddy, because we had taken a bus down. We had a bunch of people with us. Yeah. He says, hey, you guys want to take the cup back to Holyoke and you can bring it back tomorrow? And we're like, I don't know, man. You sure about that? So he let us do it, and he should have listened to me. So anyhow, we take it back. We go to the bar where I was bartending. At the time it was called Nick O'Neill's. It's now Brendan's. And everybody's coming in, getting pictures with it, and we're all drinking out of it. And somehow we end up back at an after hours party at another guy's house, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just kind of, and this is before cell phones, really. They were just starting to come in.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, where's the cup?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, and so I go to Tommy, my buddy, who's the friend of Lavi, and I said, Tommy, where's the Calder Cup? And he goes, I don't know. That's the question. So we're looking, we can't find it. Now we don't know if somebody's stolen it.
Oh, my God.
And so all of a sudden, there's a bang on the door. And it's the owner of the pub, the cup. And he's like, you bleeping morons left the cup here. How do you do
that? That's a great story, man.
We knew it was time to go to bed, and we got up in the morning and drove it back. But
that's hilarious.
That's my Lavi connection.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
So I'll stay with the Rangers real quickly. Igor Shesterkin signed a big contract.
Yeah.
And of course, my thought process going is similar but different than Swayman. When you give a guy a big contract like that, and he's not even going to play 82 games, it almost becomes an immediate lightning rod, at least from my view. Jimmy, is that too much money?
In my opinion, yes, but relatively speaking to the market, and if the calculations are correct on where the cap's going, which we don't know yet, because a lot, one thing people aren't talking about is the elephant in the room, and that's the Canadian dollar. All those Canadian teams have to pay all their expenses out, whether it's salary, travel, what have you. That all gets paid out in US dollars. Mm-hmm. So, what's $1 on paper is really $150 that they're paying out right now. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't think the cap's going to go as high as people think, but that's another topic. But relatively speaking, I think, he's worth it. And I don't have much problem with Shesterkin as I did with Swayman, because he's got a greater body of work, and he's proved that he's the guy. He's done it. Swayman hasn't taken his team to the conference final twice. Swayman hasn't, won all these awards or had played it even close to the amount of games that Shesterkin has. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. And another thing, like I was a goalie, and like I kind of feel for goalies because like I get what you're saying there. Like, oh well, they don't play all the games, so should they be paid as much? But it's like, yeah, but they're out there 60 minutes a game, maybe more if it goes to a 2-year shootout.
Yep.
They're the last stop you have from keeping the puck to going in the net. So I mean, they are still to me the most important position on the ice. So I do think a goalie should get his worth, and I'm fine with that. Just depends on who the goalie is and what they've done.
Yeah.
That's a good point about the time on ice for a goalie is going to be 60 minutes typically, versus a winger who might go 22, 23 minutes, just depending on the circumstances of the game and the game flow. I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It also reminds me of like pitchers in baseball. Pitchers, they get paid a truckload of money to pitch one game out of every 5. Like that's typically the same kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a worse scenario because it's only 20% of the time versus a goalie who's probably going to play with that salary a minimum probably 65-70% of the games. So keeping on the topic of goalie, it's got me like really fired up about the Carolina situation. And yes, I am sounding the siren right now. Do we have a concern here in Raleigh for goalie? Like, what is your take on that situation? On the situation we have down here?
It's kind of always been fine with doing the 1A, 1B, and we won't invest as much money in that. And I get it. They're very heavy analytics based now with Tulsky, and but I don't know. Like I've always kind of looked at them, and then I look at Colorado even worse. Like imagine if Carolina for the last few years has had a legit number one. Imagine if they had a Shesterkin. I think they've won a cup by now. I don't know about
possible. It's possible.
Don't break my heart, Jimmy. Come on, man.
I think that's all they've been missing, and you wonder if they're going to reach a point where they give in and say, we need a guy that's going to play the bulk of the games here. Now, they've got some young kids, I think, that could potentially be that. So let's see how they turn out. But I don't know. I mean, I definitely think that is a question mark, so to speak, for Carolina.
Well, it's because I was joking with Pierre the other day. I mentioned the Napoleon Dynamite thing on your guys' show. And it's true. Because they've decided to put the money in front of the goalie. They put all that money there. But I was watching against the San Jose Sharks last night, and the 2 goals that Kochetkov let in probably should have been stopped. And even Trick Tracy was mentioning this. He goes, he said, Kochetkov, why he wants those back. So that's why I'm always like, the goalie market is so weird to me. It's either all or it's nothing. It just seems that way.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think they are one of those teams. I even look at like what Colorado just did, right? I mean, did they really solve their goalie problem? I mean,
I don't think so.
I mean, I get what you're saying that there's a chemistry between him and Wedgwood, and he's got a better team in front of him now. But still, I mean, I don't know. If I was Colorado, I would have been eyeing a number one big time, like a really number one.
Interesting.
So who are the number ones that might be available at the moment that you would say, let's kick the tires? Because we were looking through some of like some of the pending free agents coming up in goalie last night. I was looking through it. I'm like, I don't really like maybe Aiden Hill, but they're not going to move him at the deadline in Vegas. Like that doesn't make any sense for them. So I mean, who's left? I mean, what, Vanacek, Gorgiev? Like I don't know that there really is a true like number one out there. Although there have been goalies who have come into the system, like Curtis McElhinney, for example, that have played admirable, in front of the defense that we have in front. So I don't know that.
I mean, last year would have been the year, right?
Yeah,
there were more of those guys out there, I think, last year. It's a great question, though, by you. I'm on Puck Beaty right now, trying to scout them too.
Yeah, because I don't think that there's going to be really anything available until the offseason, at least. I mean, I can't imagine there's going to be any big moves, at least from Carolina's perspective. I just don't see them giving up giving up prospects and picks to try to do it. I just don't think it's Carolina's way.
No, it's well, that's the thing. Until they kind of change their way, like you say, I don't see them doing it either.
We've never gone after a goalie at the deadline ever. Like and Darren's probably sick of me sick of me saying it through text and through conversation, but it just seems like every year there's a goalie or two. Like even last year, I was like, man, wouldn't it be nice if Markstrom just kind of showed up in Carolina? And now he's playing for the Devils, and it drives me nuts because the Devils are going to have to play against us in the playoffs at some point, and Markstrom's probably going to have a big part in that one way or the other for them. So it drives me a little bit mad sometimes and I know that salary cap is what salary cap is, but at some point when you're looking at the roster and you're saying we've got all these pieces here, all these parts, and they're all gelling together, but we need stops. We've got to find the guy who can make the stops. I'm a Kochetkov guy. I like him, but I don't think right now, because he doesn't have anybody that's behind him that's really challenging for the net, I don't think that he's got like the drive to say, okay, I am the number one guy and I'm going to be the number one guy even when Freddie comes back. That's my opinion.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think he's just still maturing, right? He's still a young kid.
Younger kid. Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm just looking at the list. I don't see anybody either.
So Jimmy, real quick, we don't want to keep you way too long. I'm really curious, maybe before we diving into the Metro, what's going to shake out in the Atlantic? I
think it's Toronto and Florida, the cream of the crop right now. And then it's just a mishmash. And I put, the Bruins, and Bruins fans may not want to admit it, but they're part of that mishmash now with Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo. Yeah. I think Toronto played like poop last night, and they still came away with a win with the 2 points.
Yep.
So that they're a different team now. That they don't win that game last year or the last few years. They're a different team that can sort of bend but not break, and they've got great goaltending. Stolarz stole that game last night, so they're built for the playoffs, man. Trey Liven's done a good job, and you factor in the Berube effect. That's a tough team right now, and I think Florida's the other one too. But I'll tell you what, after watching, I was going back and forth between the Bruins and the Devils Leafs, and as I said to Pierre this morning, I think the Devils Leafs would be a hell of a conference final.
Will be. You and Pierre have been all over that. You guys have been all over the Maple Leafs. Yeah,
and they don't like that here in Boston. Or Montreal, where a lot of our listeners are. So,
is there a concern in Boston, like a legit concern that they're not going to be playing past April 15th?
I don't know how legit it is yet. It should be. I have a legit concern, but I think other people just, are kind of
figure it out, find a way.
Yeah, no, I think they're just in denial. You got to. I mean, this sports fan base has been really spoiled for the last 20 years, guys. As you know.
Little bit.
I think it's like their automatic birthright now that their team is at least getting to the second round of a playoffs in any sport. It's not. Times have changed. Everything goes in cycles, and now they get to feel what it was like when I was when this 50-year-old was a teenager, a young lad.
I'm originally from Pittsburgh, so I was spoiled for a long time until I came down here in 2011, and I was like, yeah, they got a hockey team, but nobody's going to these games.
Yeah.
$10 a ticket.
I love coming down there, though, by the way, for the game. That's one of my favorite places when I used to go on the road. I love the tailgates. I remember going down there 2009 playoffs. I think it was second round. Canes beat them. A 7-game series, too.
Yep.
I just remember, I'm walking through, and these guys are having a pig roast, and I'm like, what? A hockey game? It was like,
we know how to do it, man.
It's got the college football atmosphere too. And then,
for sure, man.
What's that bar on the other side of the parking lot that everybody always goes to?
The Bistro.
Yes, the Bistro.
Backyard Bistro.
I had some good times in there.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. If you come down here, you got to let us know.
Oh, I'd love to hang out, man. I love Raleigh too. That's one of my favorite cities. It's a cool city, man.
Yeah. Fun town, no question. No question. What about so what about the Metro then? So you like the Devils, it sounds like. The Devils coming out of the Metro. Is there anybody that you think might challenge them?
Well, the Capitals.
Caps.
I think they're one of the best stories in hockey right now, and I'm eating crow on them, man. I did not think they were for real. They made me
Same.
eat crow last year, and then I still didn't. I spit it out. No, you're still not for real. Now they're for real, and they're balanced, man. They're a very balanced team. It's not about Ovechkin anymore. It's not.
right.
I mean, it's great. He's a good story and the gold chase and all that, but it's not about him anymore. They're a team, and I give that McClellan and the coaching staff all the credit. They're a legit threat.
I didn't see them being the threat that they are this year. They were, they barely kind of limped in last year, got beaten up pretty good by the Rangers. And I was like, I mean, they made some moves. They had some interesting moves, but they're the Caps. Come on now. They're the Caps. They're kind of fake. No, you're exactly right. They're a legit
and
team.
think about who they got coming too. Now they got Ryan Leonard coming from DC.
Don't be like la 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 la. It's like, man, I want to hate that kid. It's funny. Pierre mentioned him to us the other day.
He's going to be on with us on Friday, by the way, guys. We got him.
Cool. Really?
Yeah,
oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I was watching clips of him, and I was like, gosh, I want to hate this kid, but
I do too, because he chose Boston College over my alma mater, UMass, despite growing up in Amherst, Mass.
Is that right?
And despite his older brother playing for UMass, he chose BC. But good, whatever.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
he's an amazing player.
Yeah.
Wow. So look, we won't keep him anymore, Joe. Guys, I know you got stuff going on, but I want to give you a little bit of space. You got the eye test going on. What else do you have going on?
Just right now, I am actually I do a lot of writing for a new site that came out this year called rg.org. It's been good, just freelancing, doing some stories here and there for them. We got some things cooking. I don't know if I'm able to talk about it yet, but there's some stuff that might be coming on in the new year. We'll see. But yeah, the eye test is the focus right now. Yeah. It's really, we're starting to get a lot of traction, and we appreciate your support. And it's great. We love having guys like you guys in the chat room as well. We love the questions, so keep them coming.
I can't help it. I need to probably slow down, but then I start seeing I got to get in on this. I got to get on this.
No, they're all good questions too, man. I mean, it's good hockey minds in the chat
group. It's a good group of guys, and I think that you guys are gaining traction again. Probably just because I've watched Pierre for years. That little fish hook was out there, and I was like, man, I want to follow everything that he's doing, and we've just been extremely fortunate to be able to have him on a couple times. And Chris and I are like, really? We've actually
people don't realize Pierre's always got time to help people, man. That's one thing I love about him. So
man, super awesome.
Well, I love listening to you on the eye test. I love listening to the banter. Darren is usually the one funneling in the questions, but I'll be texting him and be like, hey.
He's like, ask him this. I'm like, oh man, I can't ask that.
I'm the joker of the room, right? So.
All right, man. I don't mind it.
Cool. Well, listen, Jimmy, have a good one, man. We're super thankful that you would come on with us. I hope you have a great day. And if we don't talk before Christmas, I hope you have a great Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
And, feel free. You're welcome here anytime.
All right, man. Sounds good, guys. Enjoy it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jimmy. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Cheers.
All right.
See ya.
Oh, that was cool, man.
Jimmy Murphy, man. Yeah, that guy's a dude. Like I love talking to him. He's solid.
For real.
Got a lot of good perspective on some of the teams in the East, specifically the Bruins and the Rangers. Those are two teams that we look at and say these are kind of standard bearers. Initially with Boston, kind of as we were becoming a playoff team, it's like we just got to get past the Boston hump, And so he gave some pretty good perspective there. And then even with the New York talk, talking about the Rangers, I thought that was just really good perspective there too.
Well, he's got his ear on the ground, right? So he's, a former, I don't know if he's a full-on beat reporter right now for Boston hockey anymore, but he's a guy who's got his ear in the right spot. So, that's why, when we were able to get him on, we were like, yeah, we got to get Jimmy on because, listen, we are unapologetic Carolina Hurricanes fan cast, but we're not fanboys to the point where we just don't want to hear anybody else. It's really important for us, not only as we're building our channel, but we want to support them too, because they're at the forefront of it. And we want to be, in that too.
Yeah. The other thing is having differing opinions or differing perspectives on different things, I think is helpful, and it's healthy dialogue. for example, like we've had Greg Wyshynski on a couple times, and Greg
Yep.
has been, pretty vocal about how he feels that maybe Brendan Moore might be a little overrated, and that's fair. Like that's an opinion. It's a formulated opinion that he's made.
Yep.
It just so happens that we're probably in disagreement on that in most instances, but you know, it's good having differing opinions, differing conversations, and I think ultimately, if you want to be a good Canes fan, you need to know your team, but you need to know the other teams that you're going to be competing against as well. So we'll be on
Yep.
the lookout for people from Florida and from Toronto and from New Jersey more as well, to try to identify additional individuals who might be able to speak to some of those teams too,
Yeah.
so that we can have some perspective.
Yeah, man. 100%. I don't even need to say anything else. I think that's a perfect way to wrap this one up.
Yeah. Jimmy, if you're watching, thank you again. We appreciate your time and just the conversation. I had a blast. I loved it, and
Yep.
I'd love to do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening or day, or according to Chris, it's day. And
Yeah.
we
According
will
to my
be on
window,
here.
it's day.
And yes, and we will be on here soon. Take care, everybody.
Peace.